What is going on, everyone? I'd like to say the most wonderful time of year, and it's not Christmas. It is the start of the Texas high school football season. Week 1 is upon us, merely really 3 days away at this point. When you think of Thursday night football, it's here, folks. And joining with me today is Matt Malatesta and Josh Cook. Before we get started, I got to welcome them in and see, how was your summer? Matt, I know you went overseas. How was that? Tell us about your summer.
Summer was fire. I highly recommend going to Europe. It kind of changes your perspective on a lot of things. But I had a blast over there in Italy. Moved some kids around. One kid to New York City. Moved one kid to Dallas. So yeah, it's been a busy summer. How about you, Joshua?
Yeah, let's start with you first, Joshua Cook, because we are two Joshes here. Josh Cook, how was your summer?
It was good. You know, just a couple vacations here and there. Not as luxurious as Matt's. I didn't go to Europe. With a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, I'm not ready to get on a plane for like 18 hours. So
never.
But a 3-hour car ride is great. It's fantastic. But yeah, couple family vacations during the summer, and in between all our great photo shoots and stuff, and then just got a new puppy in the house, so that's fun. So got a little puppy running around. So, always exciting things in the Cook household.
Yeah, I do not support a new dog.
I went to the beach with the fam for a few days, so that was good. But then it was right back to the grind, because even though it's summer, we don't stop working, as you know. VYPE Campus, big part of our summer. But let's get into it. Week 1 is here. Next 17 weeks are going to be action-packed with football, from regular season all the way to the state championship and everything in between. So let's start this. I got a couple of questions for you for our kind of inaugural welcome to the fall season. Let's start with this question right here. What are some of the most compelling stories coming out of the off season for programs across the state? Let's start with you, Matt. What's one big compelling story we should be aware of?
Well, I'm really looking to see the development of how the quarterbacks of Houston are going to really do this year. I mean, North Shore's a great story. Katie's a great story, but the Mabry Matarier Woodlands quarterback, DJ Lagway Willis quarterback, 2 of the nation's top quarterbacks that are just going to be juniors. Let's see how they have taken that next step. I think that, the Woodlands is in position to be a national state possibility this year. So we'll see how that plays out. But those quarterbacks are going to be really fun to watch. And then there's a bunch of other quarterbacks around the city of Houston that are not quite at that recruiting level. But Houston was such a running town, running back centric town, and now it's really flipped to the QBs.
Josh, let's turn it over to you now. Give us that one compelling story people across the state need to know about.
Here you go. You ready for this?
I'm ready. You said you guys shocked me.
I'm gonna shock you with a couple things. I'm gonna start with this. Class 4A Division I is absolutely silly loaded from the top down. You start with Stephenville, who won the state championship last year. They bring back quarterback one, Ryder Lambert, who passed for 4,200 yards, 52 scores a year ago under Sterling Doty, who went to Stephenville. Of course, he's a Houston tie, coach at Magnolia, and before going up to Stephenville, his alma mater. So Stephenville is kind of preseason favorite. Then you have China Spring right behind them. Now you remember China Spring won a state championship last year. They did that in 4AD2. They'd make the jump up this year to 4AD1. Trey Haffer is one of the stars there looking to shine. Then you got Tyler Chapel Hill. We know about this program because Jeff Reardon has kind of gone there, taken this program like he did Crosby. He's built him up. And now this is the year maybe Tyler Chapel Hill, a little beast Texas, comes through. They got some dudes over there too. Kevion Huddleston is on the defensive line. He's committed to TCU as a 3-star. Tyson Berry at receiver. He's committed at San Diego State. Remember what Reardon did at Crosby. He built and got him to that upper echelon. I think that's what he's doing at Tyler Chapel Hill. It's all coming in 4A Division I. Then finally, people are probably like, hey, what's the Houston tie? Here's the Houston tie. El Campo is in 4A Division I. Is this the year the Ricebirds can finally punch through? It's Ruben Owens' last season. He's the number one running back in the country. He's the top recruit in the country. He rushed for nearly 3,000 yards last year. Can they ride him all the way to AT&T Stadium? Can the number one running back in the country carry his team to the state championship game? It's going to be tough in 4A Division I with Stephenville, Tyler Chapel Hill, China Spring, El Campo. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Who leads with 4A? Who leads with 4A? I do like that. Is a very tough area. That's a good region. Todd Dodge. That's an interesting. Where does Westlake go from here? I mean, they're going to probably continue to be a power because it's a culture, right? But, I mean, that dude was kind of the dude in that area. So let's see how that plays out. So many coaching moves over the past 6 to 8 months. We'll see where these guys, kind of how they pan out. You got high school coaches that are now coaching in college. The Texas Tech Red Raiders have them a high school coach. I'm excited to see how the vacuum of coaches kind of change and who becomes the next big thing in the world of high school coaching across the state.
Yeah, I definitely brought up the Westlake kind of new regime, if you will, in my 5 burning questions. Check it out on VYPE.com. But I'll summarize with this. Tony Salazar's been there since I think 2014, if I remember correctly. So he's going to fit right in, and that defense is still there, and it's going to be loaded. He replaced a bunch on defense last year, and look what they did. The biggest question mark is going to be the replacement of Cade Klubnik. You have the quarterback there that actually got to play a few games last year while Cade was nursing an injury. I think it's going to be Westlake. The really interesting thing, and again, this is on my article, is that Westlake is almost guaranteed a spot at D1. The only way they can make D2 for playoffs is if Del Valle makes the playoffs, which, they're kind of almost on the outside looking in. We really have to see how Dripping Springs and Buda Johnson do moving up from 5A to 6A. So they're probably going to be, 6A D1, which means, most likely, potentially, a matchup with, Lake Travis for one in the playoffs at some point, and then maybe even after that, North Shore. So definitely some compelling stories when you look at the, kind of the higher echelons of Texas high school football. But let's talk about some dark horses right now. Let's move on to another question. And Josh, I'll start with you. Who are some dark horse contenders when we look at these Texas teams from, maybe from 1A through 6A? It really depends. I mean, you look at a lot of these teams that kind of took it all last year. Is Pato a potential dark horse because they went up from 5A to 6A? What do you think, Josh?
I don't think Katy Pato is a dark horse. I mean, you win a state championship. I think that takes you out of the Dark Horse area. There's gonna be a lot of questions for Pato on the offensive side of the ball. The defense is gonna be stellar. I mean, you look at David Hicks up front. He comes in from Allen. His dad's a coach. He came and joined the staff over there. Their defense is going to be solid. The offense is going to be the question mark for them. And then moving up to 6A, and you move into 19-6A. Now you have to play Katy and Tompkins, and it's a lot different. Making that jump's a lot different. But, for me, and Matt already knows where this is going. He already knows where this is going because I completely disagreed with him on his preseason rankings for this district. A dark horse for me is going to be the Klein Forest Golden Eagles. I think they can be sneaky good. They were, they had a good non-district last year, and then they kind of hit the skates in district play. But this team's a year older. Jonathan Wilson, what he's been able to do there is phenomenal. They got 3 superstar recruits there. You started with University of Houston commit Parker Jenkins coming out of the backfield. Then you got ultra recruit Jelani Watkins. I think he can have a breakout year receiver. He had a breakout spring on the track. He was amazing at the UL State track and field meet this past May. And then on defense, Brad Spence. He's committed to Arkansas. His younger brother, Trent Spence, who Brad says is going to be better than him, is up on varsity now. So you got the Spence brothers coming off the ends. Am I saying that Klein Forest is going to go win the district? No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. Are they going to make the playoffs? I'll make that bold statement right now. Klein Forest will make the playoffs this year, comparatively to what Matt Malatesta thinks. But I'm going with the Golden Eagles. I think the talent is there on paper, and plus there's another bet on the line, Matt. Jonathan Wilson might have to get his head shaved again if he makes the playoffs.
I think he's going to be fine. I went to Klein Forest. I'm rooting for him. But D1 players are great, but they don't translate into wins all the time. And see this gray in my beard? That's an old gray beard talking, because man, it's just like, I know we get all kind of hyped up on him, but I'm wishing the best for him. Coming out of the city of Houston, not a dark horse. I mean, this is my dark horse team. Nobody talks about them, about being able to make that push all the way to state. And I know people are going to say that's so lame of you to say that, but the Woodlands Highlanders are good. They've got a great offensive line, huge offensive line that is led by Caden Siraki. He is going to be a star. He's just a junior also. The only thing that works against them is they're a little young. So you got a junior quarterback that's a national recruit. The offensive line is filled with national recruits. The receiving core is nuts. You've got, Quanell X, Quanell X has moved over there from Grand Oaks. He gives them another tremendous weapon offensively. The defensive line has gotten better. They're always a sound tackling team. The only thing that concerns me is their DBs. Can they get past a Duncanville or DeSoto? Maybe. But I think that's a team is a team that has staying power. They're going to run through their district. And they play North Shore, so they're going to see kind of what it takes early on this week. And I think they're going to give North Shore a really good game. I think they could win that game.
There you go. Some dark horses to consider as we head into the football season. Next question I have for you guys. Who's one player we should keep an eye on this season? Yes, we have the Ruben Owenses of the world. We know he's going to be one of those you got to keep your eye on. But what's one of those that's like they're just that close from just like a breakout season? Matt, let's start with you. Who's that one player we got to watch this year?
Well, I'll tell you what. Caleb Bailey was a freshman last year. He's the North Shore quarterback. They won state. If this guy continues to develop under Willie Gaston, who's the OC, I'm going to take on a history lesson for 30 seconds. Vince Young played it in Houston. Vince Young played a game against North Shore that ended 61-58 in what's called in the barbershops as the greatest game in the history of Houston high school football. They played North Shore. The quarterback of North Shore was Willie Gaston, who's now the OC, and I guarantee he would say, I've got potentially the next Vince Young as my sophomore quarterback. How about that for going full circle? played against Vince Young, now could be coaching the next Vince Young. That is lofty expectations, but that guy, if he gets very accurate and puts the work in, becoming a quarterback first and not relying so much on the run, this guy could be special. Caleb Bailey, North Shore High School.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Matt. I mean, when you think about it, he's only a sophomore. He still got, after this year, not this year, after this year, he's still got 2 more years. That's crazy to think about, and the ceiling for him, he's got so much potential. So that's a very good selection right there, Matt. Josh, let's turn it over to you. Who's that one player we got to keep an eye on?
So I'm going to go with a guy named Andrew Marsh of Katy Jordan. Katy Jordan is one of the newer programs in the city of Houston. They're going to be in 19-6A. But this dude this is a dude at wide receiver. He just looks the part in the little film that, I've seen of him and from his scrimmages. He just flows so well. He just is a smooth runner, a good route runner, knows how to run good routes. He's a guy that has 14 offers and hasn't even played a varsity down. That includes Baylor, Houston, and LSU. He just looks really smooth. He really reminds me of kind of like a Harold Perkins-esque kind of route runner. It's very smooth. It looks very smooth. It's not very jerky at all. He just kind of looks like he's gliding across the turf, has great hands to go up and get the ball. So I really like Andrew Marsh. I really want to see what he can do. I think he's going to be one of the top targets for Katy Jordan. I think Jordan could be a sneaky team this year in 19-6A. They've got a lot of weapons. Nathan Sauls is another one at wide receiver as well, but I really like Andrew Marsh. And then this is not really a dark horse guy because everyone knows who he is, but this is a nod to Josh W. for you. How about Dalton Brooks of Shiner, the younger brother of Doug Brooks? He's committed to Texas A&M. He's 6'1", 187 pounds, playing in Class 2A Division I, is an absolute beast, has 22 offers, and just rolls over people. Shiner went 16-0 last year to win the 2A Division I state championship. Dalton Brooks is back for another year. So I like Dalton Brooks of Shiner as well. Of course, everyone does, and what he does for the Shiner Comanches.
Well, yeah, one good note about that is, Shiner's probably the biggest opponent into the last couple of seasons, Refugio. They're in the same district for the next 2 years. So that's a big-time story to watch as well, is those two teams in that district probably ended up playing twice this year. Who's going to win when it matters most in the playoffs? I'll give you one real quick, the player to watch, and this is really because if there's one team that can potentially finally get San Antonio, to that state title game, because I think it's been since 2014 was the last time when it was Steele, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be Brennan. It's going to be because of quarterback Ashton DeBow. He was the 6A Built Ford Tough Player of the Year last year. They got to the regional finals where they lost to Lake Travis. San Antonio always has that problem of trying to get over that hump in 6A when it comes to, trying to get to that state title game. And if there's going to be one team to do it, it's going to be because of Ashton. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. Definitely want to keep an eye on him this year. So any other things before we move on to our other question, guys?
Yes. Who is this season's, kind of surprise team, like statewide, that really has super state power? Like South Oak Cliff was one of the greatest stories in high school sports. I don't know, maybe in 6 or 7 years. I mean, what the Golden Bears did is remarkable. And can they sustain that? I think that's going to be another kind of interesting storyline. But who could be that team that kind of comes out of nowhere and shocks the world?
That's a good question, Josh. Do you have a selection or theory on that?
I don't know if I have a selection or theory. I mean, like Matt said, South Oak Cliff is the best story in Texas high school football over the last few years. Having seen them in person last year, I mean, they were just brute force, and I think they have enough to do it again this year. They've got the pieces back that they can make another run at it, and I think that's going to be a lot of attention is going to be on them this year, is after winning state last year. I think a team, and they've been there before. I think a team to kind of watch is going to be Fort Bend Marshall. What did they do after last season? And, they lost in the first round of the playoffs last year. They get into a new district this year, a little bit more of a competitive district. Jacoby Banks enters, I think his senior year. He's committed to the University of Houston. So I'm interested to see what James Williams and company do with Fort Bend Marshall. Can they get back to the state championship game? They were there back-to-back years a couple of years ago. Can they get back onto the upper echelon of Texas high school football? I think Fort Bend Marshall has athletes all over the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they look good. New district will test them a little bit better before the playoffs get here. So interested to see what they look like here in 2022.
I love those stories like a Tomball. Like last year, no one on the landscape of Texas high school football thought Tomball was going to do anything. They had an amazing run. Crosby's kind of that sneaky team also that that has done it the last couple of years. You can't really call them a dark horse anymore because they've kind of done it. Another team, Southeast Texas, watch out for the LCM Bears, Little Cypress, Mauriceville. Again, where is that? It's right on the border of Louisiana and Texas. Eric Peavy comes over from Westbrook, has a big historic season last year. Can he keep it going over there in the land of the Bears?
One more team for you before we move on. I got to throw their name out there. Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial. I think they have a good shot to potentially, get a coast team to state this year. We'll get a good chance to see, how they stack up because they will be playing El Campo. I believe it's in week 2 or week 3. So, they'll get a good test and really we'll get to see, what kind of caliber team we're going to get from them this year. How about coaches now? We talk about players that might, kind of stand out. What coach is going to be making a name for themselves this year? Matt, let's start with you.
Wow, that's a great question. Some of the coaches that I really like that are kind of off the grid, let's say, you've got your John Kays and, of the world. And, a guy I really like, there's 2 guys that come to mind in the Houston area. Peavy is great. I love him at Little Cypress, Mauriceville. But I really like James Clancy at Klein. And he had a very interesting point to me. They've been kind of pretty good and on the cusp of something special. They've only been a high school varsity program for 5 years. And he's like, Matt, we had so much talent come through here. Are we a program that's going to reload or have to rebuild? He's hoping it's the reload because I think that's a really great way to look at it. Now he's he's a guy that's under 40 years old, and I think he's building something special at Klein. But does he have enough? He's one guy I really like, and the other is this dude does not get the juice he deserves. Rick LeFavors at Ridge Point. He was at Lamar Consolidated. Then he gets to Ridge Point, and man, he's one of the best dudes out there. Just a great man, leader of men. I think they're going to be tough in Region 3, Class 6A Region 3. But I just think he's a really quality and just a really good coach.
Josh, let's turn it over to you now. Who's that one coach this year we got to be looking out for? Who's going to be making the name for themselves?
Well, I had originally written down, Tony Salazar out at Austin Westlake. Not that he needs to make a name for himself, but he's taking over for a legend. When you take over for a legend, that's one of the harder jobs to do. When, for instance, when Bobby Knight retired, it was Pat Knight's turn, and that kind of didn't shake out that well at Texas Tech. But that's just kind of an example. When you have to take over for a legend, what do you do? But I think Tony Salazar will do a great job. Like you said, he's been there since 2014. The kids know him. I think that's going to be interesting to see what he can do there. Another guy that's interesting is Cirillo Ojeda, who goes from Sharpstown to Aldine. So at Sharpstown, he was able to turn the culture around there. They had a losing streak of like 25 straight games. They win some games there. They went 3-7 last year. He built that up. Now he's taking over an Aldine program that's kind of in a bit of a similar situation. They've had a tough road over the past couple of seasons. Haven't really won any games. Can he come in and kind of reestablish that, Aldine heritage of winning? And remember, Aldine football, they won a national championship in the early 90s. I think it was 1990. They won a national championship. They won a state championship back then at Aldine. Can he rebuild that and start getting this program going? in that area. Another guy to take note of is Cornelius Harmon. Goes from Summer Creek. He's offensive coordinator there under Kenny Harrison. Played at Port Arthur Memorial. He now takes over Nimitz. Nimitz has got some talent. He's got Corey Huff on the defensive side of the ball that's going to go to Baylor. They got a good quarterback coming back. Can Cornelius Harmon come in and establish a culture there and get Nimitz going? Ike is kind of the brand right now, and Matt maybe want to argue that a little bit, but Ike, I think, is the brand of Aldine ISD, what Eric Jackson has been able to do there. Now, can Cornelius Harmon and Cirillo Hayda, can they come in and establish kind of their brands with their programs inside Aldine ISD?
Hey, I got one more for you. One of the biggest brands in Texas high school football is another little Southeast Texas school by the name of West Orange Stark. Dude, this team is been full of dogs for a long time and have tremendous success under Cornell Thompson, who has been there forever. He retires. Okay, first of all, this guy has got an amazing name for being a high school coach. Hiawatha Hickman is the new head coach at West Orange Stark, one of the biggest brands in Texas. That's a lot of pressure for the defensive line coach to come in and be the AD head coach. At a big school like that, stay tuned. Let's see or not a big school, but a big state power like that. Let's see if he can handle or if he's up for that transition.
Some great coaches to keep keep an eye on, and probably plenty more that we just didn't get to. Let's end the show today by kind of making somewhat of a prediction, if you will. And so let me ask you guys, what is the one lock for upset of the week? Tons of games across the state of Texas. You got some great matchups against kind of ranked teams, if you will. What's that one upset lock that you can just lock in right now that this team's going to upset, a favored team, if you will? Let's go, Josh. Josh, who's that upset for you this week?
So this is kind of a team punching up a division. I'm going to go Crosby at CE King. Some people might be like, whoa, why? That's not really an upset. But it is a 5A program taking on a 6A program. Crosby does not shy away from playing tough competition. We saw that last year when they opened the season against Carthage. They were literally one kickoff return away from winning that game. And, Carthage is a state power. CE King, they're trying to build themselves up in that 21-6A. They got Kyron Miles back at quarterback. They got stars all over the field on defense, offense. Crosby's been a team, went to state, played for a state championship 2 years ago, went to state semifinals last year. Lost to LaGrange, who ended up going on to lose to South Oak Cliff in the state title game. This is a great test for Crosby. I think Crosby wins this game, makes an early season statement, and they do it against a Class 6A program in CE King, which their defense is really good at CE King. They added some pieces this offseason, and Cam Beiser, he came over from Jack Yates. So I think CE King's defense is going to be really good. Levante Johnson's another name to remember on that defensive side of the ball. So I'm going to go Crosby over CE King to open up the Texas high school football season.
Matt, let's turn it over to you now. Who is that upset? Where's that game going to be? Who's it going to be?
Josh, it's coming.
Don't do it. Don't you do it.
It is coming.
I can't handle it. No, I can't do it.
Look at the backdrop. Look at the backdrop. You see that picture right there? Whoops, right over here. See that?
Yep.
That is Bobby Reed of North Shore High School, which faces the Woodlands this weekend at North Shore. They're the defending state champs. The Woodlands is not a lock, but I think they're going to win this game. And you're thinking, that's the stupidest thing I've heard all week, Matt. Well, the Woodlands went to Atascocita. It is a scrimmage. I get it. They can control the line of scrimmage. All of North Shore's defensive super freaks are off to college. I think the Woodlands has enough if they control the clock and the ball, running the ball, and they don't turn the ball over. They have had trouble with the turnovers. The Woodlands wins this game.
Oh, mic drop. There you go.
I just can't with him. I don't. Do you know what the North Shore secondary looks like? You know how many 5-stars are on the North Shore set? How are you going to run? You ain't going to throw the ball all night unless you're just going to run the ball. The defense. Let's talk about defense. Who's stopping David Amador? Who's stopping Dion DeBlanc? Who's stopping DeAndre Hardiman? Who's stopping Caleb Bailey?
Played it down at North Shore.
It doesn't even matter,
dude.
Okay. Who's stopping Caleb Bailey? Who's stopping DeAndre Hardiman at running back? Who? Rashad Johnson.
Well, hey, what's really good about this, Matt, and I'm glad you brought this game up, is that you're going to be able to watch, folks, if you're in the Houston area, you're going to be able to watch to see if the Woodlands can pull off the upset, because we got our VYPE Thursday Night Showdown coming back this year, presented by Ernie Guarantee Bacon Trust. Sorry about that. North Shore versus Woodlands, 7 o'clock, AT&T Sports. Now you can see there the channel that relates to right there on your screen. So we'll have that one for you. We'll have VYPE Thursday Night Showdown for 7 games this year. So be ready for that. Oh, by the way, that's not all. We got tomorrow on KPRC, we got Bridgeland versus Lake Creek. Man, the 2 games we've had so far on KPRC for volleyball have been absolute just classics, 5-set classics. Last week's Barbers Hill was down 2-0 to Deer Park and came back and won that one in a thrilling I think the closest or the widest margin of victory was 5 points in set 3 by Barbers Hill. And then, of course, on Friday, KPRC Game of the Week, which I think, Josh, you and Matt will both be there calling that one, if I'm not mistaken. Got Katy versus Clear Springs. So, hey, it's here, folks. Texas high school football is here. We will be here covering the games. We've got plenty more games on VYPE.com as well. So be sure to tune into those games Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. And hey, tune into us every day at 3 p.m. We'll have a show for you. Tomorrow, Josh Cook is going to be on with Coach Craig Cranfield for St. Pius. And that one's going to be a weekly show as well. So, hey, let's get some shout-outs going. Matt, who you want to shout out today?
Just shout out in general?
In general.
Well, hey, okay. I'm going to shout out. This is Josh's favorite team now in volleyball. The Conroe Tigers are undefeated in volleyball, which could be historic. This has never happened before. I think, what are they, Josh? 21-0?
21-0.
21-0.
21.
I know Josh wants to put them at number 1 in the city. Hold your horses.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. They broke in the top. Okay, we can't give it away too much. The new volleyball rankings are coming out here tonight at 6 o'clock. Can't give it away too much where they're at, but they're somewhere.
Conroe's not number 1, but kudos to them. They're doing an amazing job. Just turning. They have a mother-daughter coach, superstar player that transferred from Klein to play with her mom the last year, which is a great story. A, B, they're balling out right now.
Josh, how about you? Who do you want to shout out today?
I'm going to go with, since Matt took Conroe, thanks, Matt. Thanks for that. I'm going to go with Barbers Hill Eagles. 16-2 on the season, looking really good. They beat Deer Park in one of our KPRC2 volleyball games of the week. They've played really good in their tournaments. Just piecing it together really nicely as Barbers Hill. So interested to see what they do when it comes to tournament time. Tomorrow's game, KPRC2 volleyball game, is going to be fun. Bridgeland at 10-3. Lake Creek kind of off to a slower start than we thought they were going to be. I think 6-7 on the year, 6-8 on the year. So a big opportunity for Lake Creek to kind of rectify some things. Bridgeland, they're looking to continue to play well. Neat story we did as our Sunday feature this week is Bridgeland starting libero, Alice Volp, is the daughter of Rice legendary volleyball coach Jenny Volp. She's been there for 18 years, or 19th year now, as the Rice volleyball head coach. That was our Sunday feature, talked about their relationship in volleyball. What's funny is Alice's first sport actually wasn't even volleyball. It was one of her last sports. She did gymnastics and swimming and everything else you could think of before getting into volleyball, but now she's a star libero. Jenny, her mom, thinks she's actually better than she was at that age. Alice is into a big year of recruiting now as she's a junior, really wants to play Division I college volleyball, so we will see where she ends up, but she's definitely a big name to remember for the Bridgeland Bears as you go into tomorrow night's game on KPRC 2+.
I'm going to shout out wives and significant others, especially my wife, y'all's wives, coaches' wives, because as we know, we are about to be about to be very scarce in the household for the next 10 to 17 weeks. So got to shout out the wives for being patient with us as we get to cover Texas high school football. So shout out to all the wives and husbands and significant others out there. It's going to be our show for today. Again, we will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. for the St. Pius Coaches Show with Craig Cranfield, and Josh Cook will be there with the interview for him. So until tomorrow, I'm Whack. That's Matt and Josh Cook. We'll see you guys at the games.
Bye, guys.